Today is the first video I'll be filming after Geekway to the West 2017. That's a game convention in St. Louis that I attend every year and love every year. And this year, like past years, I've played a ton of new games over the last few days, and I look forward to talking about them today and over the next few weeks. I'll probably do more than 2 videos a week because I have a lot of games to talk about. They'll be in no particular order, but today I saw that the Role Player Kickstarter just went live today, so I thought I'll start out with Role Player. Role Player is a new to me game that I played twice over the last few days, which says something for my enjoyment of it, because usually I only play one of these new to me games once, so I can expose myself to a lot of them. But I enjoyed it so much I wanted to play again. Basically, you are building a role-playing character. It's not a role-playing game. It's a dice placement, dice drafting game, and card acquisition game. But you're building a character and then doing nothing with it. You're just building a character and building them as interesting and strong and powerful as you can, and then you count out points and see who wins. I could go into, like, this video could be 15 minutes long because there are a lot of interesting mechanisms in Role Player. One of my favorites being the asymmetry of the game, because you have a starting player mat that's a little different than everyone else's. You have a starting class. You have these attributes, attribute goals you're trying to fulfill. You're trying to match up certain colors of the dice on certain places on your player mat, and you have this alignment that you're keeping an eye on too. And there's all these weapon cards. There's all this stuff. But I want to focus on my favorite, and my favorite. And actually, let me explain the core mechanism first. You have this big player mat with 18 holes, 18 dice size holes punched in it. And over the course of the game, you're going to be filling all 18 of those holes. But at the end, and they mean different things. So there's like a dexterity row of 3 different holes, and you fill that row and with different colors of dice and different numbers, and you add up the total, and that matters in the game. And when you complete each row, or whenever you place a die in that row, you activate a special ability. That's the relevant thing for this explanation here, which is my favorite mechanism is at the very beginning of the game. You randomly take 8 dice, you roll them, and you put them wherever you want, left to right, in those rows on your Role Player player mat. So it's the one type of the game where you have kind of complete control and freedom and as much time as you want to figure out exactly where you want to put those dice. Because for the rest of the game, you'll just be drafting 1 die per round and placing it somewhere on your player mat. And hopefully you'll get something you want. The drafting mechanism is really interesting, and it has a lot of freedom to it and interesting choices. But I like that at the beginning of the game you have that complete freedom with those 8 dice to figure out where they go. And this matters because of all that asymmetry I mentioned earlier. Like, there are certain places on the mat where you want to have a certain color. Like, maybe the top row, you want a blue die in the 2nd position based on a random card that you got at the beginning of the game that says you want a blue die in that position. And so during the course of the game, you might leave that spot open and hope that you get a blue die to put in that position. But at the beginning of the game, you know that you have a blue die if you pulled one at random from the bag. It's a certain element, though. You know exactly the 8 dice that you have, and you can put them where you want. And so you can match them up. You can work on the numbers a little bit for the attributes. And so you have control over that. But there's a sacrifice here, and the sacrifice is really interesting because, as I mentioned, during the game, whenever you draft a die and you place it in a row, you activate an ability unique to that row. Usually they're like dice manipulation abilities. You increase the value by 1, you flip it over, you move it to someplace else, and there are a few others. But they're really important abilities for achieving your goals in the game. And those abilities do not activate during setup. So during setup, when you're putting all your dice out there on your player mat, you don't activate the abilities, and you're covering up abilities that you could use during the game. So I could, for example, say I rolled 3 6s and one was a blue 6, and in that top row I need that blue die in the middle, and I need the total of that row to be 18. From the very first turn, I could fulfill that goal, 2 of those goals. I could put those 3 6s up there, and I could put that blue die right in the middle, and that could be really good for endgame scoring. But for the entire game, I can't activate that ability because I've completed that row. And so it leads to some really interesting choices at the beginning of the game. And even as a game designer, I'm hesitant to throw stuff like that at new players like big decisions to make early on where they don't quite understand the repercussions. But that's the key in role player, because you do understand the repercussions from the first turn, even before the first turn, because you have those little cards that say you want the colors here, you want the number totals here, and it's really easy to understand. Like it's right there in front of you. So it's a brilliant mechanism to start the game. And I talked to someone at Geekway who didn't like this mechanism. This is their least favorite mechanism. But for me, it is definitely my favorite of the game. I really, really love that element of role player. If you want to check it out, there is a Kickstarter running right now, just complete coincidence for this video. Feel free to check it out. I'll put a link in the comments. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you played role player, what's your favorite mechanism? And if you haven't played role player or you want to talk about a different game, tell me about your favorite setup mechanism in a game where you have interesting choices. I guess the only parameter I'd give is choose a mechanism where new players aren't overwhelmed by it or can't be significantly damaged by it. I think an opposite example would be Settlers of Catan, where the choices you make before you even start playing can kind of screw you over for the whole game or set you up for the entire game, and that can be kind of dangerous for new players. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks.